If you're a creative person and you just clicked on this video, let me be the first to say congratulations. Your desire to do something is all that you need to receive the information that I'm going to be telling to you today in this video. 6 months ago, I resigned from my 9-to-5 corporate job to pursue a path as a full-time creative. What I didn't know when I walked out of the office for the last time was that it wasn't just a career change. It was an awakening to my own alchemy. And after a few side quests, spirals, and ego deaths, I think I'm at the beginning of many endings still. In this video, I'm not just sharing what I've learned since becoming self-employed. I really want you to see yourself in my experience. If you're curious what you could create in this life when you fully commit to yourself, consider this video to be an invitation down the rabbit hole. These are the lessons that I've learned leaving my corporate 9-to-5 job to be a full-time creative. Featuring Reaper. What would you like the audience to know? The first lesson that I learned is that corporate culture clouds creativity. When I stopped going to a traditional office setting to do my job, I had to completely change how I manage my energy and time. The conditioning of the corporate world taught me that there were right ways to work. And I was so used to this perpetual illusion of productivity, yet I couldn't pretend that I didn't feel called to some greater sense of purpose. I knew that this stretching of my soul wasn't a sustainable way to live my life or approach my career. So for me, working for myself felt like a way to find harmony and honor my reason for being on this planet. Now, don't get me wrong, giving my creative spirit control over my calendar at first was so overwhelming. I went from juggling a 40-hour work week with all the roles and responsibilities that came with that position, trying to find the seconds in my schedule. That ultimately led me to a serious state of burnout. In the early days after leaving my 9-to-5, my routine became a sort of playtime. I experimented often with my regimen, and the uncomfortability of every new day became a lot less daunting when I started to let my intuition drive the direction of my day. And within the first month, I came to the realization that time is actually not a commodity, despite what the corporate culture tries to condition us to believe. Creativity ebbs and flows. Success cannot be calculated in a calendar or magically manifested in a moment. Okay, well, sometimes it can be, but there's a balance between believing and being. The hustle mindset tries to teach us to demand immediate rewards, but the creative journey is all about trusting the process. It takes time to come up with creative ideas and to plant them and nurture them. And even then still, growth is not guaranteed. And the most important question that you can ask yourself, especially in the early stages of entrepreneurship, is what feels right? And be present with the answer. Lesson 2. Sync up your calendar with your cycle. I had to completely cut ties with my 9-to-5 in order to break the corporate cycle. But even as I made more space for myself in my life, I still felt disconnected, like a ghost in a machine. For me, syncing my calendar with my cycle, I took quite literally, and it actually stemmed from a really big decision that isn't for everyone. I stopped taking birth control. Now, this choice had a lot of factors, but ultimately it came down to me wanting to be more in tune with my body and how that affects my everyday productivity and work. Now, you don't have to make as drastic a change to your life that I did, but there are ways that you can apply my reasoning to whatever the realities of your situation are. Syncing my calendar with my cycle started with very small steps, and I could even do a whole spin-off video if this is something that people are interested in, with seed cycling and luteal phases and all that kind of stuff. I can get into that as well. First, just by simply observing how my energy fluctuated throughout the day, practicing mindfulness and meditation and breath work to regulate my emotions throughout the day, which was ultimately really necessary to be able to center and ground myself in a very chaotic inner and outer world. And it's still something that I practice every single day because I generally deal with anxiety. And so just knowing how to regulate my nervous system is going to make me more productive and just make life a lot more easy. I also began indulging in the mysteries and the miracles of the world. I studied the stars and astrological transits and the moon cycles and compared how that synced up with where my body was at that time of the month. And over time, I was able to notice the different strengths and challenges that I would typically associate during those periods of the month. The most difficult aspect of this was learning that I did not have to be productive at every phase. As I regulated my nervous system and researched myself, the routine was revealed to me. I no longer was forcing myself to uphold this image of productivity or success that was imposed on me by others. And instead, I finally just allowed myself to create from a completely authentic state of being. Lesson 3, predictability versus purpose. For years, I lived in a world governed by predictability. The 9-to-5 environment provided structure, deadlines, and a sense of security, but it left little room for purpose. Yet, for some reason, predictability often feels safer. It's the comfort of knowing what comes next and this illusion of control. Becoming self-employed, I had to unlearn this belief that I had adopted that having some sort of strict, rigid plan would lead me to success no matter what. Instead, I learned to make peace with the unknown. In the limerence of the future, I found a deeper understanding of why I had made the right choice for myself. Purpose demands courage. It asks you to dare to dream and fail and still show your heart anyway. Just root your routines in your reason and watch your reality change. Number 4, authenticity attracts alignment. When I let go of the mask I wore, the ones that made me likable, palatable, or professional, I felt raw, like kind of naked. But at the same time, it felt like such a relief to release these identities that no longer resonated with me. And like, let's be honest, like I didn't even resonate with them because they weren't real. They weren't who I was. I was performing to be someone in this setting because I had to be. And I was code switching. And I know a lot of people do that as a means of survival like I was. People can usually tell when you're not being real. And even if they can't, like, why would you want to live your life pretending to be somebody else? Instead of abandoning my authenticity, I had to hold space for my insecurities. I confronted the conversations that were going on in my head that were affecting how I communicate with others. You know, why do I hide these parts of myself when I'm in rooms with these sort of people? Was I always like this? Have I always hid these parts? Or is it unique to this situation? I worked predominantly with healing my relationship with myself. Now, this may sound a little cuckoo, but the more comfortable that I became with myself, the more it felt like the universe was conspiring in my favor. It felt like my soul passed some tests for truly being seen. When opportunity started to find me, I realized that my relationship with myself was a mirror to my world. My work became a true reflection of my essence rather than an imitation of what I thought others wanted me to be. Authenticity is a magnet and it draws in what is meant for you. Now, do be warned, because this also means that there is some shedding involved and that you're gonna have to let go of some relationships, whether that be with yourself, and release old versions of who you used to be in order to move forward, or you may have to disconnect from people or environments that are not in your best interests, which leads me to number 5. Know your community. We are not meant to do this journey alone. Creativity, by its very nature, thrives off of connection. The people who truly see your soul, who uplift you in whatever mission you're on and co-create this life with you, that is your core community. And as an extrovert, I will say I find community so comforting. But even if you're not an extrovert like me, there are so many places that you can find your people. Whether you find them in a local collective of creatives or online group or just another kindred spirit. These relationships are so important to act as reminders that our dreams are valid, our struggles are shared, and our successes deserve a spotlight. It was honestly pretty hard for me to develop that core community. I moved out to Seattle back in 2022, and it took me about 2 years to find a few handful of friends that I felt really saw saw my soul and understood my mission and helped me to stay on path and to keep that light lit inside me no matter how dark my days were getting. A fun little side story. Me and my best friend and business partner were actually mutuals on TikTok for 2 years before actually officially meeting. I was walking back home from the grocery store and Cece and her sister were walking to the grocery store and we just happened to cross paths. And that's just to say that if you're struggling in the search for someone or a community, just know that all you can do is continue to show up and show your heart, and your people will find you along your path eventually. Our world desperately needs this kind of actual conscious connection. A simple DM or even a cold call, if anyone remembers what those are, can really go a long ways in today's world. I think a lot of people are desiring that collaboration but don't really know how to initiate. So know the energetic value of those exchanges. If you can create a relationship with your audience or community, you dismantle this consumerism corporate mindset that associates people as some sort of like monetary gain and gets you back to how we were actually meant to navigate this world, which is in community and through collaboration and combined efforts towards common goals and shared dreams. Tip number 6, financial realities and freedoms. Shifting out of scarcity is scary. Breaking generational traumas around finances, even scarier. Just to give you some context, I grew up in a family where money was kind of a touchy subject. We didn't have a lot of it growing up. I grew up in a low-income home, and my family worked really hard to build themselves into being middle working class. And I have been working since I can remember. I was babysitting as a young girl when I wasn't legally allowed to work. And then once I turned 15 and a half, I started working at a yogurt shop right down the street from my house. And I was conditioned to think that working was more, there's a wound there. I was conditioned that working was more important than myself. I'm the type of person that when my plate was full, I was like, how about just a sprinkle more? How much more can I handle? Let's see if I can add one more side hobby onto my plate, or maybe another job. I think growing up in Las Vegas also really put this hustle mentality onto me, to where I thought that it was just a normal way of being to adopt this kind of like workaholic entrepreneur, like work till I die industry mindset that was really hard to let go of later on in my life. And what I want to emphasize is that money is energy. And like energy, money flows where intention goes. I began to see money not as a fixed amount in a bank account, but rather a force, one that responds to our mindset and amplifies it. Now, of course, with financial freedoms comes an immense amount of financial responsibility. And I will be so honest, like it's not meant for everybody to be able to take on that kind of responsibility. There have been days where I have walked away from business ventures and have lost money or time or energy or a combination of all of it. And it can be really stressful when you start to take on that financial responsibility as an independent person. It can be really scary. Listen, I get it. Bills still need to get paid and stability is a real concern. The first step to changing how money flows in and out of your life is to truly understand the relationship that you have with it. For me, that meant doing shadow work that directly targeted the wounds that I had around wealth. What was I taught to believe about money and work, and how has that got me to where I am in my current financial situation? And once I felt like I started to dig up all of the dirt and shame and nastiness that I had associated with money, I was able to clear the page and write a new script around what I wanted to believe. Get intimate with your finances. In order to develop a healthy relationship with money, you have to be able to talk about money. How have these unconscious conversations impacted the way that you are currently co-creating with cash? Because you're not going to be able to break these cycles if you're not even able to admit that you have created one. Sorry to say it. Peeking in at your bank account from time to time, being afraid of if that bill hits early or whatever. Focus on the kind of abundance that fuels your soul. and do your best to budget your energy and cash flow. Tip number 8, failure is feedback. At first, I resisted failure so much. Like, it just triggered all of my insecurities of not being good enough, feeling like what I was doing was stupid or wasn't amounting to this like vision that I had stuck in my mind. And the control freak and the perfectionism were having a field day. Failure felt like I wasn't good enough, like everyone was right, like I should have never left my job, and that I was fucking crazy, and that this was really stupid and dumb. But feeding failure your insecurities is the quickest way to kill your creative spirit. Every project Oliver, what would you like to say? Every project that didn't work out or idea that didn't really get executed exactly how I envisioned. When you shift your mindset to see failure as feedback, you remove the fear of trying. Don't be afraid to be seen doing something different. In fact, don't be afraid to be seen at all. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with me on this, but there's nothing embarrassing about entrepreneurship. In fact, I think it's really beautiful when people step into their potential and decide that they are going to attempt to carve their own path. That takes an immense amount of courage and bravery that most people just don't have. And I don't think that there is anything shameful about attempting that, even if it doesn't work. One mistake could lead you to your biggest miracle moment yet. Failure is just redirection. It shows us what isn't working. So be open to evolution. Even if that path was perfectly paid for you, it could lead you to somewhere that you realize, wait, I don't even want this anymore, or this is what I thought I wanted, or this is what I wanted 6 months ago, and now what I desire has changed or evolved or is even bigger or completely different. Our journeys aren't meant to be a recipe. Like, your vision of success could change time and time again. And honestly, if it does, then that's how you know that you are making progress. Being able to watch yourself grow as a creative is a gift. When I began, I thought I had to stick to a particular niche or vision or goal, and then that would deem me as a successful creator. But the reality is that I am always changing, and so are you. I was so stuck on what I thought success was supposed to look like. But the truth is that my business model and my creative pursuits have gone through so many different phases. You're never going to achieve growth if you're moving in a linear line. It's a labyrinth of self-discovery. It means taking the wrong turns and getting to a dead end and having to completely move in a different direction. Give yourself permission to change. The best thing that you can do as a creative person navigating this world is trust your intuition and know yourself. Whether you're a creative or business owner or just wanting to awaken the artist inside you, I just hope that something in this video helps you with that journey. If there's anything that you have questions on or that I touched on that you want me to dig in deeper today, I would be happy to do that. Creating this community is really integral to where I want to go next, and that wouldn't be possible if you weren't watching right now. So I am hopeful that we can continue to share resources and empower one another, and I would love to watch this grow into a bigger collective of creatives. And that concludes this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment any video ideas that you'd like to see me cover in the future. But until then, bye.